Make it Truth Frequency Radio.
He has fixed the earth firm and immovable. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. And as always, I thank all of you for taking the time to join us this evening. I'm honored to have as special guests both Patricia Steere and Mark Sargent. Patricia, are you there?
Yes, I am, Zen. Thank you for having me.
It's a great honor. I appreciate you joining us, and I appreciate both of your willingness. Mark, are you there, brother?
I am here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Well, you guys have been very busy as always, but especially so with doing the recent Canadian Flat Earth Conference. Before we go into kind of reviewing what occurred and what went down up there, if you would, Patricia, give out your website, your contact, anything you'd like to share, YouTube channels, those kind of things.
Sure, Zen. I have a YouTube channel, no website, but the channel is Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. And if anybody wants to contact me, my email address is Steere, Steere, @gmail.com. I also have a Facebook community page called Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. So pretty much that's it.
Excellent. And what about when the shows that you guys do together?
We do those on Wednesdays, almost every Wednesday, and that is on my Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes channel. And we have a name for it within the channel name. We call it The Secret Show. Actually, for almost like a joke in a way, but that's just the name we've picked for it.
Right on. I like it. Mark, how about you, brother?
Best way to get a hold of me is just go into Google or YouTube and type in Flat Earth Clues. And that'll eventually lead you to my channel, which is just my name, Mark Sargent. And I also have a show here on Truth Frequency Radio on Tuesday nights called Strange World, where it's a dedicated Flat Earth show. Right? That's all I do is I talk about it all the time. And so between the show on Truth Frequency and YouTube, no problem finding me.
Excellent. What about the Enclosed World? Are you still doing?
I am. Enclosedworld.com is out there. It's more of a placeholder right now than anything else. It mirrors a lot of the YouTube content. And from there, there's a couple forum boards, and it's a work in progress. We recently changed webmasters for enclosedworld.com. But the rest of my contact information is on literally and I have over 1,000 videos out there in the description box of every video I make. And the channel description is my full phone number, my address, and my email. So easy to get a hold of me.
Excellent. All right. Well, before we go to the conference, I wanted to ask you, both of you, because I know you have as far as a pulse on what's going on in Flat Earth and the community. What kind of interesting, strange stories or any current happenings or events or people coming out as proponents of Flat Earth or against anything of that nature? Mark, let's start with you. And then we'll
Wow.
Strange stories. Let's ask Mark.
That's my bread and butter right there.
Right.
Lots of things. It's been a little while since how long has it been? A few months since I've been on the show?
Yeah.
Okay. So you and I probably
November conference actually around there.
Oh wow. Has it been that long? No. I've been on after that.
Yeah, maybe a little bit after that.
Right. So we never talked about the Salton Sea test or anything that was going on down there.
No.
Okay. And Patricia actually should chime in every once in a while.
Oh yeah, sure, I will.
Yeah,
because boy, we're going back in time now.
Yes, we are. Well, actually, flat Earth years are kind of like cat years. A lot happens in a year of flat Earth, and it seems like so long ago that Patricia and I we'll start going all the way back in Toronto, where
now that seems like that was years ago, and
it was April.
Yeah, I know. Weird.
the end of April.
I hope I'm
actually.
not physically aging at this level that flat Earth
What?
goes by.
What's that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Young whippersnapper. I remember flat Earth. Yeah.
Right.
It was okay. So what happened was at the end of 2017, they finished shooting the documentary, the first documentary out that was released in April of this year. It is called Behind the Curve, and you can find it at behindthecurvefilm.com. And so they finished the principal shooting in November at the conference in Raleigh, and then they spent the next 3 months or so editing, and then they submitted it to various film festivals. And the first one that was picked up was Toronto Hot Docs, and that was going to be the world premiere. So Patricia and I were invited to come up to it, and we flew up to Toronto, which was a beautiful time of year to go. It was a beautiful city. I'm glad I wasn't there in the winter. And we got to see it twice. You know, it is not officially released yet. It is still in the film festival circuit right now. So we saw it once privately in the hotel room of the producers, the director and the producers that shot it. And then we saw it a second time on the big screen in one of the major theaters in downtown Toronto.
Very cool.
And it was a lot of fun. So anyone that wants to check it out, the trailer's out there called Behind the Curve. And Patricia is not a big fan of the title, and I can understand why.
Well, we didn't pick the title. The title was picked out long after all of the filming was done. And even the actual concept for what the film was going to turn out to be was unknown to those of us who were in it. The people that filmed us just basically filmed us doing things, and we figured that they would put it all together in some form later. And later we realized it was going to be a story about the people behind Flat Earth, as opposed to scientific experiments and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So we were only two of, what was it, 6 or 7? So it was Patricia, myself, Jaron from Jaronism, Bob from Globebusters, Nathan Thompson from LA, Chris Ponte.
He's got the largest Facebook group of any flat Earth group, Nathan Thompson, just in case. That's how people know him. If you're not on Facebook, you might not know his name.
Right. And who is it? Chris Pontius, of course, from flatearthmodels.com, and the ever persistent Matt Boylan. Made an appearance in it, even though he was not officially interviewed by the team. They put together a compilation of some of his favorite rants and put that on as well.
From YouTube. From his
YouTube.
Channel.
Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. So anyway, the point was we saw it. We're to a very, very small amount of people that have seen it so far. It has also made it to the Los Angeles Film Festival. I think that's coming up in 2 weeks, officially going to be there. And then it's also going to be at the Denver Film Festival just before the conference. And I know we'll talk about that in a while. And it was also admitted to the Melbourne Film Festival down in Australia. Which four film festivals so far. The LA one was probably the biggest surprise because the LA festival is not a documentary festival. It is a full-blown film festival, and there were only 8 slots for the documentaries, and that one got in and really surprised the producers. So
if I had because I saw it twice, both times with Mark. The first time was in a hotel room, basically, not in a theater. If I had just seen it and not been involved with Flat Earth, not been involved with any of the things I know now that I didn't know several years ago in 2015, I would have found it very entertaining and interesting. And that's what the average person off the street who knows nothing about this topic will find, something entertaining and interesting. But later they may go home and think, wait a minute, these people seem so nice and sincere. They're not crazy. Maybe I might look into this.
Yeah. And I saw it by the time I got to finish the second showing in the theater, and I had advised the director not to announce that we were there, but he was pretty insistent. It's like, no, it'll be good. And I was like, okay. So after the film was over, when it comes to film festivals, the directors, the people involved go up on stage in chairs. And we were not asked to go up on stage. They would just announce that we were there. But once we were announced, the audience questions kind of turned rapidly to where they didn't want to talk to the director and the producers anymore. They wanted to talk to us. And it wasn't really hostile. I mean, we got it to the point where they had to shut the thing down at the end and move us out of the theater because we had all these globalists that had questions, a lot of questions. And in fact, the only hostility we got from that little thing that afternoon was from one of our own, from a Flat Earth member who was in the audience, who saw it and said it wasn't a pure Flat Earth movie. And it's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, it wasn't about the science. Why would you do something like this? And
yeah, why would you be part of this movie?
I answered him that they said that they were going to follow us around and find out more about us, and that's what you're going to find out. Yeah. Most people involved in Flat Earth, you're not going to find them on a day-to-day basis from dawn till dusk doing experiments. They eat, they laugh, they cry, they socialize. Right.
Yeah, we it was what I thought it was going to be. It follows a standard documentary format, whereas you set up all the characters, you kind of show little bits and pieces of them, and then you get them all together at the main conference, and that was really how it ended, with the exception of the Jaron experiment thing at the very, very end. But it followed pretty much what I thought it would, because I was there for probably 75% of the shooting. They took me down to Salem, Oregon for the Great American Eclipse, which was absolutely magical, and down to LA, so we were, oh boy. You know what? I'm going to confuse myself if I go any further on this one. So anyway, the point was we were from Toronto.
What Mark's trying to say is we've gone so many places and done so many things. Sometimes they overlap, and I can't remember.
They are overlapping now. So so the point is that let me transition over to the Salton Sea thing. So the Salton Sea experiment was never supposed to be a really heavily Flat Earth engaged type of event. It was done because there was a little podcast out of California, out of Los Angeles, called Oh No, Ross and Carrie, who had interviewed me at the end of 2017. And they were science fans, and they worked on me for 2 hours during that interview, and were really frustrated that I wouldn't give up my belief in Flat Earth.
Like that would happen. I mean,
yeah, because I had been doing it for a couple of years at that point, and you're going to talk me out of it in a couple hours.
Right.
That's never going to happen. So they decided to get a hold of a skeptics group, and there's not that many of them out there, and there's several in Los Angeles. And they grabbed one. They said, okay, we're going to do a long distance photography test first thing in the morning out at this Dead Sea, which is east of Los Angeles by a couple hours. And I'd never even heard of this place, and most people hadn't, because it's a dead sea. Nobody lives out there. It's really just out in the desert. And I said, well, I don't want to. They said, would you like to witness the test? And I said, no, it's a terrible test. We don't do this test anymore, and I don't want to do it. And so Patricia and I were up in Toronto, and what had happened before we got to Toronto was right after the skeptics group wanted me to go to this thing, National Geographic called me up, and they said, hey, is there anything happening? They're kind of late to the game, and it's like, hey, we want to do a production thing. We want to follow some flat earthers around. Is there anything happening? And I go, well, there's the Denver conference, and they said, it's too far away. Anything sooner? And I said, the Canada thing. Nope, we're not going to do a Canada thing. There's international stuff. It'd get really messy. And it's like, well, how about, there's a stupid thing happening down in Los Angeles at the Salton Sea. And they say, oh, that sounds interesting. And I go, yeah, but I'm not going. So let's just, you and the LA people can get a hold. I really try to stay away from this thing. And when I was up in Toronto, they called and they said, what if we make it all expenses paid? You come down. It's like, I don't really want to. It's like, come on, it'll be fun. You don't have to do anything. You can we'll just interview you. You'll respond to whatever their test is. And I go, okay, but I'm going to hate it. I'm going to hate the whole thing. So I dragged Patricia into this. It's like, hey, Patricia, come out to the desert. Be fun.
It's going to be over 100 degrees, and you have fair skin and burn and pass out in the heat. What?
Perfect. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, Toronto was fun, but the Salton Sea thing was not so much. But we did have, for everything there is a balance, and it was really, really wonderful because this is where I'll segue into this. Is that they also asked, hey, can you do National Geographic asked if we could do a meetup in Los Angeles. Like, okay, sure, let's do a meetup. So we did one in Arcadia and about 100 people showed up, and it was really, really great. And Nat Geo was out there shooting, and the couldn't have gone better. Rob Skiba, the Los Angeles group flew in Rob Skiba, the Flat Earth group, not National Geographic, and just it was a blast. It was the three of us, and this fantastic LA Flat Earth community, and that was a blast. And then we sorry, I'm looking at the chat thing. And after that, we had the day off, the very next day off, because the Salton Sea test wasn't going to be until, was it Sunday morning, I believe?
Yes,
exactly.
I
think it was Sunday morning.
4 a.m. I think we started driving in the dark to the middle of nowhere where the Salton Sea is.
And I will say this, because they were asking me, it's like, hey, can we get like a few people to come out to this thing? Some flat earthers. I'm going, look, you're asking flat earthers to get up at 4 a.m. on a Sunday to drive to the middle of the desert after probably drinking the night before. Are you really? I go, I'm embarrassed to even ask them. And so I did not ask anybody at that meetup if they were going to really go. I wasn't going to press anybody. And it turned into Field of Dreams, where we get out there and all of a sudden this stream of cars were showing up. And we had, I don't know, 30 plus flat earthers. We represented bigger than the 8-man team that Nat Geo brought and the Skeptics group brought and the local media brought.
Nice.
We were there in force, and we were critiquing that test to death, to where after they were gone, we went back and did the test, I don't know, 3 different ways. And it was shot a bunch of different ways, and National Geographic asked some tough questions, and it should be released. I'm mentioning all this because it should be released in the next month. So check it out. We'll make sure we spread the word around, but it should be on National Geographic television. I don't know if it's actually going to make it into the magazine. They took enough still shots and they have enough content. They could absolutely do a magazine article on it as well.
What was the test?
The test was just a long distance, your garden variety long distance photography test, where you're shooting across 9 miles of water, and can you see the beach on the other side?
Right.
And you shouldn't be able to. I mean, there should be a bunch of curvature. And they, rookie mistake on their part, where they waited too long. They should have had this test up and running before 5:30 a.m. And they did not. They did not do any dry runs. They thought, okay, we'll just do it live first. Let's out of the gate. And they didn't even have the first photography stuff ready until about 7:30, pushing 8 o'clock, and the sun was already up, and the lake was heating up really, really fast, and there was a massive amount of distortion, and we were losing visibility on the shoreline with every 10-minute increment. And we didn't do any time lapse or anything like that. We probably should have, but I pointed out as many times. I beat the drum as hard as I could to the Nat Geo guys, but they claimed, oh no, we couldn't see the balloons until it got up to a certain level. It's like, well, actually you could. We spotted the balloon. You couldn't even find your target. For example, they didn't even know 9 miles is a long way away. They didn't even know where to look on the beach for their guys. Because when you're looking that far away, a lot of landmarks look kind of the same. And we spotted it with our cameras and said, oh, yeah, they're right there. And they said, well, you can't see it. It's like, of course we can see it. There's no curve. Of course we can see it.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, that was the Salton Sea test. Should I mention, Patricia, the little extracurricular thing real quick or not?
Well, yeah, sure. But first, I just want to say, for those who are kind of unsure of what Nat Geo is going to put out there when they do, they're going to say that this test proves that the Earth is a globe. But in reality, had you been there, you would see that because the people that were doing the test started so late, it was so hot, and the visibility changed during the time we were there, where we could see clearly, then we couldn't, based on the fact that it was very hot and the water had those little wavy things above it in the atmosphere. And they said that was because of curvature. And we, of course, said, no, it's obviously moisture. It's the environment. And they, the Salton Sea crew who went out there, that live in LA, went out there, I believe 2 to 3 more times. And they used infrared later. And with the infrared, they were successful going out early enough to get the proof that we all know that we don't live on a ball. But
Yeah.
Nat Geo, well, they got sent the footage, but will they use it in their article, or will they stick with what they saw that first day?
It's a tough call. I don't know. I mean, the point is we don't do this type of test anymore like that. You don't. Now, granted, we figured out a very clever way to punch through the atmospheric distortion, and that was using mirrors on the other side and infrared cameras.
Right.
But usually you do it at night. You do it with lasers like FE Core did over at that lake in Hungary. You do it in cold weather. If you ever can, if you can just use lights and no lasers, you can do it in cold weather because that'll reduce atmospheric distortion almost down to nothing. But you don't do it in 100-degree weather on a thermally compromised lake that was already at 80, 90 degrees, the water temperature. It was just brutal. It was anyway. The point is that what will National Geographic do with it? We will find out soon enough. And either way, the exposure is still worth the stretch. So I'm sorry. I know you got like 5 minutes to break. I gotta throw in this extracurricular story real quick. So the most unusual thing, because you're saying anything strange happened? Yeah, something strange really did happen. That was during our day off between the meetup and the test. We had a day where we weren't doing anything. So we went out to dinner, a little intimate group with some of the Flat Earth LA coordinators. And during that, Patricia, who had posted a nice picture of her meal at the restaurant on social media, it got picked up by one of the people that was at the meetup. And this particular man was related to a Hollywood celebrity who wanted us, Rob and Patricia and I, to come up to their place in Palm Springs for drinks. And so we did. And we talked shop, just the three of us, and this particular Hollywood icon with extended family for the better part of 3 hours. And it's fascinating conversation to where the part, of course, that sticks out the most to me was when he asked me, he goes, hey, Mark, do you want to know how I found out about it? I was like, sure. How did you find out? And he said he found out at the Oscars this year. During an Oscar party after the Academy Awards, where there were a lot of, and I won't mention the names, any of the names, but where there were a lot of people in the room, and they were talking conspiracies, and this A-level celebrity female comes in, and actress, and says, no, let me tell you, what my father's into. And she lays out the whole flat Earth thing for him, and that's how they got into it. And so it is very big, very, very spread out. And then on a quick side note, because I know I have time, I'm looking at the clock. When I got home, my cousin calls me. She's a hedge fund. She's a banker's wife out. She lives in California right now, but she was in Manhattan at some little wine bar thing with some high level Wall Street hedge fund guys. And one of them is the CEO of a big hedge fund company. And they were talking conspiracies, and she's not into flat Earth, but they happened to bring up flat Earth, and she said, "Oh yeah, my cousin's into it. His name's Mark Sargent," and they absolutely knew who I was. They knew who everybody in the community was. They knew all the concepts, and they even, granted, they had a few glasses of wine in them. They even took a selfie. She took a picture of them holding up a phone with the AE map on it, and I can't. My hands are tied. I can't show this picture to anybody because this one guy is high enough profile that it would actually probably reflect on the stock price.
Crash the stock market.
Yeah. Oh my God. It would make the Wall Street News in 2 seconds. And I can't do anything with it. It's like, all right, well, that's great. But it let me know that Flat Earth is the coolest story out there, and there is no demographic, there is no grapevine it cannot work its way into, because again, it doesn't matter how rich, how powerful, how talented, how beautiful you are. Flat Earth can fit into your group. Flat Earth can work its way into your conversation somehow because it's so huge and just so darn interesting. So yeah, that was just what happened between. That was just that one trip.
I know, basically. And the Hollywood A-listers house that we went to and spoke with he and his wife, with Rob Skiba and Mark and myself. A lot of people say those in Hollywood are all Satan worshipers and all that. This guy is an admitted Christ-believing, deep Christian.
Yeah.
He even recommended a book for me, which I have now. So he's not what you, sometimes maybe the things that we've been told about everybody who lives in California, everybody in Hollywood, isn't indeed true. A lot of these people are really, actually, they have feet of clay like the rest of us. They've gone through a lot, and some of them either always were Christian or had spiritual beliefs, or are that way now. So, it was really great speaking with him. He appeared, I don't know if we even should have said to be a very normal person. Nothing weird, nothing creepy, very normal and very interested and very on the ball about all aspects of all of the various what we call conspiracies that we talk about.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, you can't generalize everybody. Everybody's individual. We'll be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody. And for those that don't know, this is the song that just went off is called Ezekiel's Will by Destiny Lab, and we will be putting out a book of their lyrics very soon. And so just wanted to catch everybody up on that. But let's go back to, did you want to say anything else before we move on to the Canadian conference, either of you?
Well,
or any other special news or current events? Or
during the break when that song played in the side private chat, I wrote to Mark, I like this music, the song that was just playing. I really like whenever that one plays. The sound of it sounds like I want to hear the rest of it.
I'll send you a disc of their music. Actually, I'll send you both a disc of their music. They're my favorite band. I love all their stuff, and I think you'll really dig it too. So
cool.
One more thing I'd like to add, because again, so many things are happening that I tend to just push the minor ones out. Was that we also went to another meetup down in. We probably should mention the Shane Dawson thing.
Oh right! Oh my gosh!
I know, right? Because that happened.
Yeah.
One of the biggest YouTubers in the world. His channel is called Shane, and he did a conspiracy compilation video where he dedicated a full 20-minute segment to flat Earth, and I mirrored that 20-minute segment on my channel, and I mean it's up to like 17 million now, but he got 15 million hits. I know, he got 15 million in I think the first 2 weeks. He's got a huge following, massive following. He's got 17 million followers. And I didn't even know this kid existed because his demographic is from age 12 to about 20. So if you know anyone from 12 to 20, I guarantee you they know who this kid is. I have not brought this guy up to, I say kid because I'm old. I have not brought this guy's name up to anyone in that bracket where they didn't know who he was. They may not be a follower, kind of like when we were on that elevator at the Canadian conference, and these two girls were getting out, and because they were very up to speed on YouTube channels, and I said, "Oh yeah, Shane Dawson, he's on the 12th floor," and they absolutely took, "What, he is really?" And I go, "You should check it out." As the doors closed, it was great. I love torturing them, but he so I mirrored the video, and his brother was the big conspiracy guy here. In the video, he calls me, and I'm thinking, oh, great, we got some copyright thing, and he wants to call me up, and because I get that every once in a while, if somebody calls me, it says, will you pull the video? Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. But he says, any chance you're going to be in LA, because we'd like to kind of extend this and turn it into something else. So Patricia and I, it's like, all right, here we go again. So we go back down to Los Angeles, and we meet up with Shane's brother. And DITRH also flew down for this, and we did a whole nother meetup. Same people were organizing it. So this time it was in Pasadena. And while we were down there, we met up with said Hollywood icon again. We went out for dinner with him and talked shop for another 3 hours. And but then we also got a chance to shoot it's so surreal, but it happens. We got to shoot the very video we had watched that gotten 15 million hits, where it was shot. We shot in that very studio apartment type thing that they had set up, because studio space is so limited in Los Angeles, as you can imagine, that people will buy houses and apartments, anything with a high ceiling, and they will convert it into their own little private studio. And that's what these guys did. Shane shot some of his stuff out of here. So we, Patricia got interviewed, and I got interviewed, and DITRH got interviewed, and that segment is still in the editing process, and wasn't that long ago. And we're going, because we did that literally, and that's a good segue. We squeezed that in. We flew home from that shoot and had a day to unpack and unwind and repack, and then head straight up to Edmonton, Canada.
We're jet setters.
Yeah, we're
jet setters. Not really.
You guys are, no doubt.
But it was true story, and we had to do it. That was the window. They said, can you come down? It's like, you know what? Normally I would have said, I can't speak for Patricia. Normally I would have said no. I would have been too tired. But it's like, you know what? When they call, when an opportunity like this arises, you can't say no. You just can't.
No.
The exposure was totally worth it, and I hope the piece, he got enough footage out of it, and plus he spent, the greatest part was he spent the entire meetup with the LA community and interviewed a whole bunch of people. So I hope some of it gets used.
That is fantastic.
And he's pro flat Earth too, Shane.
Yeah,
his brother.
Fantastic.
He understands it. He understands the element of God. He understands all of it's crazy when you meet people and they understand this stuff. It should be the norm, right? But it isn't. And when it happens, it's really mind blowing. Yeah.
Yeah. And now it's, as far as videos go, if you type in flat Earth into YouTube and you sort by view count, Vsauce is always number one at like 21 million, but in second place now and gaining on him is this Shane Dawson video that's now up at 17 point something million hits, and it's pro flat Earth. So good for him. Grateful that he did it, and grateful that they kept a real open mind, and it was a lot of fun hanging out with Jared and his group down there.
That's amazing. I can only see, more and more things happening from that, and especially if he's reaching that age group that you said, 12 to 20. Oh my gosh.
Right.
Yeah, he
fantastic.
He planted the seed in a lot of young minds, a lot of them. The videos that came after that were people, the reaction videos are so popular nowadays. Reaction to Shane's video. And because Shane comes off as so genuine, he's such a nice guy that the people, it's like if Shane's talking about it, it must ring true. It's like, okay.
He grew up a little bit like a lost soul with a troubled childhood, and he shares all of those things on his channel. And so he's won the hearts of a lot of young people who themselves have gone through a lot and are going through a lot. So the people that will watch his videos aren't just watching it to get some laughs. They watch his videos to learn, to empathize, to bond with him. So he's like one of the most perfect people to bring flat Earth to young people.
Oh yeah, wow. There wasn't an inkling of skepticism. When he and his brother were talking, they were, at the end, of course, they were saying, they didn't want to be labeled. They were saying, does that make us flat Earthers? And they're going, well, no, but at the same time, they really enjoy the flat Earth concept, and it was probably one of the best 20-minute compilations I've seen. Very slick editing, and it covered all the major points, which was fantastic.
Nice. And especially, again, with the demographics of that age group, they are the ones that will research and look into and examine all of this. And they're not yet so hardcore indoctrinated into belief as far as, because they're skeptical now of everything. The whole American dream is collapsing around them, and so they're having to seek just happiness, joy from somewhere else.
Yeah.
True.
And they will bring this up to their friends at school. That's also a big difference. Whereas, when you're adults, it's like you're afraid to bring it up to your spouse or your friends or your coworkers. And kids talk. I wish I was a fly on the wall at all these schools all over the place where it's like, yeah, did you see Shane Dawson's video? Yeah, man, he's talking about flat Earth.
Isn't it funny how children or young people in general aren't afraid of being judged as much when it comes to out of the box ideas? They may have, body insecurities, sexuality insecurities, and those things that we go through when we're teens and such. But when it comes to thinking about different topics, most of them are not afraid. What year are they? What age are they when the clamps go down on them and they feel like they've got to, step into line and not step out again? Would it be, right after high school graduation, maybe?
Usually it's right after university. Because when you get to university, all of a sudden the gloves come off for a while, and you've got those 4 years, potentially, if you make it all the way through, those 4 years of being exposed to things that your family doesn't really have much control over.
And also, you've got that college debt to pay off, and you've got to get that good job, and you've got to.
Well, that's a little different. Yeah, when back in our day, when you could pay for a semester of college with couch money, that was stuff you would find in the couch cushions. It was there was not much pressure, but you're absolutely right. Nowadays, when the kids come out of school, they've got a 6-figure debt, and I've said it before, I cannot imagine being 21, 22 years old, coming out with a 6-figure debt. It would just cripple me from a psychological standpoint. I wouldn't know what to do with it. Yeah.
I agree with you. The other thing with regard to the so-called higher education is that they are so indoctrinated during those years, and those are really still formative years, but then they get molded. They get molded to toe the line, and they get their paperback degrees, and they think that this is what we've been taught in the colleges, and so I know different and better. I know because I took astronomy for 3 years, and as my science in college, and I thought I fully understood all the dynamics of world and how everything was as far as the cosmology, and then when I learned that there was no curvature, that just that one thing forced me to reassess everything. But it was difficult for me to even overcome that indoctrination, to even give it possibility, to even entertain the idea that I could in any way be wrong, because college education, but anyways, and so let's go into talking about because I watched and it was really all of these speeches and the round tables. I really liked the way that Robbie did all the round tables with everybody this time, and Patricia, you facilitate so well. You really have a skill set in doing that as far as facilitating these kind of round tables and everything. But Mark, your speech was epic, brother. I want to give you if you would talk a little bit about the challenge to scientists and the as far as the video that was made.
So what happened, I get called from different, I do a lot of interviews, but I got called from a big German television group. I think it was, but I'm going to screw this up. Is it ZDF or 2DF or whatever the logo is? But anyway, it's one of the big ones. And they were trying to put a segment together, a television segment, and they said, okay, we heard your initial challenge that you debate any scientist or any group of scientists, 1 on 5, don't care about the odds. And it's true. It's not my challenge anymore. Now I've got an even better one, which I'll probably die over. But this one was, I said, look, just give me a chance to talk to a scientist. And so they got a scientist from, an astrophysicist from Georgetown University. But what they didn't want to do, because as you know, most scientists are not very good public speakers. They can't debate very well. They're just brains, right? They're super nerds. And so they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to record you asking some questions. We will play him your recording, and then we will record him with his responses, and we will go back and forth like this. That way nobody's talking over each other, and it's compartmentalized, and go, you know what, that's fair, sure, why not? And that way we can think about our answers. There's no pressure. We don't have to, we're not live or anything. Why not? It sounds very very civil. And so they say, okay, you start. You gotta ask 5 questions. It's like, all right. So they go, but they got to be scientific in nature. I'm like, all right. And I hadn't really done that until that point. The clues were kind of ethereal. They were thought experiments, but they really didn't get into a lot of sciencey stuff. And so but I wanted to make it easy to understand for people, because the average person on the street is not going to know a lot of hardcore math or equations or any particular scientific discipline. So the questions were pretty easy, and I don't want to. I'm not going to read them the whole thing. I'll just give you the quick rundown. So the first one, I won't read you the speech, because these were, I'm looking at the thing from the speech. The first one was long distance photography, which is you explained to me how that ships that supposedly go over the horizon can now be brought back into frame using digital zoom and HD technology. How is that possible? And if they say it's an illusion, well, I've got military guys that'll say they can target these boats with weapon systems with direct, sight point-to-point beam radar, and we can actually hit these things with
the railgun.
Well, not just the railgun, but the Sparrow missile system. I mean, you can't target a Mirage with anything. Right? You can't paint. You can't use a high-powered laser it'll go right through a Mirage, because remember, the Mirage isn't even there.
Right.
The second one is the power of a vacuum versus gravity, which is how does the space station work? If the space station is just plastic and aluminum, how does the immense pressure difference between the inside of the space station and the nothingness on the outside, how does it keep that space station from just blowing the thing apart? How does that happen? Because remember, the opposite is the submarines. Submarines can only go down so far, and then they hit crush depth, and they're made out of very, very strong reinforced steel. And you have to have special reinforcement to even go deeper than that. So how does that happen? The vacuum doesn't work. Cannot work the way it's advertised. The third one is the eclipse shadow, more of a 3-dimensional experiment, which is if the moon shadow, you remember the Great American Eclipse of last year, was it was only a 70-mile wide blackout zone. That's really, really small, considering the moon is 2,000 miles wide. I mean, you're talking about a convex focusing of the shadow from 2,000 miles down to 70 miles. That's 97% decrease. Where do we see this in anything else? Where do we see it? On top of that, the addition to that, which I really didn't talk about in the speech, was that if that was the case, what's good is good for the goose is good for the gander. The Earth, which supposedly is 8,000 miles wide, 4 times the distance, should cast a 250-mile wide blackout zone back on the moon. So during a blood moon, sometimes we should see, like an eye on it. We, should have a pupil. You should see this blackout zone, which would be a tenth the size of the moon. It should be visible without even binoculars. We don't see it. The fourth one is moon temperature, which is one of my favorites. How is the moon temperature colder? And then, how is the moonlight colder than the moon shade, which is the opposite from the sun? It's 90 degrees in the sun, it's 80 degrees in the shade. Why is it 50 degrees in the moonlight and 60 degrees in the moon shade? Should not be that way. No one ever talks about it. And then last but not least is the Van Allen belt trap question, which is, tell me real simply, it's a yes or no answer. Are the Van Allen belts deadly? Yes or no? If they're yes, then how did Apollo 8 through 17 get through them? Right. And if they're not deadly, then tell me why NASA has a very, very clear, detailed video on their website saying, yeah, they're extremely deadly. They're so deadly, we're not gonna send capsules through them. And when I threw those 5 questions out, that was it. That was the end. There was not going to be a rebuttal, and the Georgetown guy said, "Yeah, I'm not doing this." And the segment collapsed just immediately, and that was the last. Luckily, I recorded it, and I hid it from them because they didn't want me to put it up on air. But so I just renamed it. The thumbnail's still there. and the audio is still there. But yeah, that's my only proof that we even did it.
Wow, awesome. Good for you, keeping a record of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was
So.
fantastic. I definitely recommend everybody check out the videos and the speech that Mark gave at the Canadian conference. Certainly epic, and I think people will.
Well, thank you. It was just my, trying to boost the morale of the troops, because we don't get a chance to call out science very much. And my test, I let me throw this in real quick, which is the test that my new challenge, because I can't get anyone to debate me. Initially it was Jeffrey Grupp. Jeffrey Grupp was the original challenge, and then it's like, well, he's getting covered in dust and rust. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And maybe I would be a more enticing target, and that didn't work. So now my challenge is it's ground level, which is find me an astronaut suit, find me a vacuum chamber. It'd be nice if somebody else was in another astronaut suit, because these things apparently are foolproof. They've never failed in the history of our space guys ever. Our astronauts, 500 guys never had a problem with an astronaut suit once, except for the guy that supposedly drowned,
almost drowned,
or was going to drown.
Yeah.
And but the spacesuit should not work the way it should. I did a clue on it called the lost nail, which says that, look, a spacesuit, an astronaut suit, is just a thick balloon. No different than a basketball, no different than an automobile tire. That's all it is. And there is basketball is pretty tight. You can't, you can grip it a little bit, but it's pretty taut. And that's just a few pounds of pressure in that thing. So tell me how an astronaut suit doesn't get as tight as a basketball. And if it does, tell me how it doesn't. And if it did, how could anyone move their arms or legs or fingers or anything? There's no way. The astronaut suit cannot work the way it's advertised. And I'm absolutely 100% sure of this, because I can't even, remember, I'm a pretty clever guy. I can't even think of a fictional way to get that suit to work against the power of a vacuum on the outside. I can't do it. I can't think of anything short of, force fields or magic, something out of Harry Potter, maybe. The current technology, no, but even future technology, I can't think of it. And it's never, find me a document online that tells anyone how something in the backpack in 1969 kept that suit from turning into a parade float. Tell me how it happened. So anyway, that's my challenge.
Excellent. We had for the longest time the challenge through Sacred Word,
right?
For proving that the Earth is moving or that there is any curvature. But really, we got so many just idiots, and that would not listen or would not hear anything that as far as. You get them to even just look for curvature, but yet they refuse to do it, and they come up with all the support from NASA and all. And I just got tired of wasting so much time.
Yeah.
Responding and dealing with people like that, so that I finally took the challenge down. But certainly, if you wanted to. Answer and rebut and talk with all these people, we would certainly, keep the money up there and keep the challenge out there. I just don't have the time to deal with all of it.
What I probably should have told you, I didn't even think of this because I didn't know exactly the details of your challenge. Something I put in my original debate challenge, which was whoever it is has to have a master's degree or higher in a physical science. That's the only qualifier I asked. I go, look, I don't care if you have a master's in geology. Give me something. And that's usually what stops them, because
that's probably smart. Yeah.
Anyone that has a master's degree really doesn't want to risk because I've had friends, they said, oh yeah, when you have that much education, you don't want to be that guy. You don't want to be the person that's known, that you went up against flat earthers and you didn't wipe the floor with them. Mm-hmm. And so they keep quiet, and, like no different than the Georgetown guy. He's like, yeah, not doing this. It makes sense though, from their standpoint. It's like, look, if you can't win, you better not go up against us, because if you lose, you all of a sudden become a media pin, something
Right.
you go viral, because like, oh yeah, this particular academic lost to some flat earthers. Here's what went wrong.
Become the poster boy.
Yeah, the poster boy. You don't want to be
Yeah.
the Michael Jordan thing, the other guy in the picture.
We need a Me Too in a positive way for the Flat Earth movement to start happening, which would be that whole, who's going to be first on the dance floor thing, with
Right.
one person getting out there and saying, hey, yeah, it is flat. And then other people saying, me too, I also believe. And then more and more and more people coming out. And unlike the Me Too movement, it's not about something negative. It's about something positive. And it's strength in numbers. People are afraid to come out. People, like we talked about earlier, people that are well known don't want to right now make themselves and their names known. So,
Yeah.
Right.
But we're getting there.
There's still negative connotation associated to it. But like you said, more people and individuals like Shane Dawson bringing up the youth and getting them to challenge and question. That's just gonna snowball effect for sure.
Yeah, and real quick, I know we're going to break here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Which is again, forgot the little details. The guy that there was another Hollywood celebrity, we can mention his name, that contacted Shane Dawson because he watched his video, and that was Alan Alda from MASH.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Right on.
And then he went on The View and mentioned that
Really?
he wanted to
So
look
cool.
into flat earth, and he wanted to talk to some of these people. And so we even invited him to the Pasadena meetup. He didn't show up, but we put the channels out there. He got the invitation.
Awesome. Well, maybe some other time.
Yeah.
All right. We'll be right back, everyone, for second hour. All right. Welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zane Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio, and I have as special guests with me this evening both Patricia Steere and Mark Sargent. I wanted to ask you both kind of what you learned, or what was new insight, or what you thought was as far as awesome, or anything of remembrance from the Canadian Flat Earth Conference, and also kind of what you've seen the evolution since the Raleigh conference, because again, I know both of you have your finger on the pulse of all things flat Earth, and so if you would, Patricia, let's start with you, and then we'll go to Mark.
Well, what I learned is that, we're in a different country. We're Americans, we're in Canada, but the people there are just as, if not more so, involved in this as the Americans are. And I also learned that the more conferences that we have, the, I guess, better we get at putting them on. Well, Robbie D's the one putting it on, though. But he learned from the first one maybe that didn't work. Maybe we'll do it this way next time. And he put those things into action instead of resting on his laurels for this second conference. So the one that's coming up in November in Denver, that one's going to be even more amazing and powerful, because it will be a culmination of what he learned in North Carolina and in Canada. So I think that as we move forward with these and different speakers come on board, that the momentum and the excitement and the polish of the events will continue increasing.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree. Mark?
Everything Patricia just said there. What stuck out to me was how smoothly everything ran. Polish is a good word, but I don't want to make it sound like it's some sort of entertainment venue. Everyone has their role, and we seem to be settling into those roles. And so, whereas Raleigh, we were just kind of winging it. It was the first Flat Earth conference ever. Honestly, the fact that we made it through that thing, the Raleigh conference, without a major incident or a major technical malfunction or anything like that, give credit to Robbie and his crew. But when we got to Canada, it was amazing. There was 8 of us. There was Rob Skiba, Patricia, myself, Jaron, Bob from Globebusters, Emmanuel Lakonga from Controversy 7, Robbie Davidson, of course, and then Matt Long. And everything just clicked. You could feel it click. there was no friction, there was no grandstanding, there was no upsmanships or whatever, no upstaging. It was really, really smooth, and everybody got their message across, and the audience was receptive to all aspects of it, and there was enough variety that, and again, we didn't even, not that much of it was planned. I mean, nobody knew, like nobody going in knew what anyone else was really doing.
Yeah.
I didn't find out till like that morning. It's like, Bob, what you doing? Jaron's in the green room, following me. He's going over his stuff, and I'm kind of doing my thing. And by the time we finished, I mean, it was going so well that even when we got to Patricia's panel at the end, and that fire alarm went off,
which was the only part really that didn't work so well, but that wasn't even the fault of anybody at the conference or who put it together. It was a very smoky in Canada. There were wildfires. So
Oh, wow, yeah.
and because the alarm system in Canada is not as severe, the Canadian bells, we should now refer to them as the bells, the bells. They were these chimes that happened every several seconds, and then a recording would come on. And because of that, we just powered through. I mean, we didn't need it. It's like, you know what? Everyone's still on stage. It's the last event of the conference. Let's just do it. And so we had Jaron and Bob and Rob, Skiba, and myself and Patricia up there. And am I missing anybody? No, there's 5 of us. And we just timed our answers and questions around the bells. And it worked out amazingly well.
No one panicked. No one ran. There was no imminent danger anyway. It was a precaution kind of gone bad on the part of the hotel. Accidentally, the alarm kept going off. But we worked our way around it, which really shows how well not only those who are speakers can handle adversity, how well the audience, the people who are there, because they truly believe that the world's not a globe and there's a creator. Everyone was willing to stay there and listen and participate without freaking out. And it just, it was a very together moment.
Right. Yeah. Nobody, again, the sense of community was overwhelming. Nobody went anywhere. We were kind of even unified against the media, and in some cases for the media. The Canadian media is different than it is down here in the States. The States are much more Western gunslinger, come in at any time. We could bring a 2-man crew or an 8-man crew. We're going to hang out with you for a while. We're going to embed ourselves with you guys like they did out in Raleigh. I missed like the entire first day's sessions because the media they were just this nonstop presence. They were always wanting to talk to people. But up in Canada, it was about getting their stuff done to where they could have it on the evening news or it was on the website by that late afternoon, early evening. So most of the media was gone by lunch on the first day. They just came in, interviewed as many people as they could. Now, granted, remember, this was Edmonton. This wasn't Toronto. This wasn't Montreal. It wasn't Vancouver. I think it would have been a little different. This was Edmonton. But it was still amazing. We only had one incident, and funny enough, who cut in line at Patricia's side. So I was doing my Q&A, and there was a female reporter, and forgive me, I do not remember the name of the group. It was CTV. I don't think it was CBC. It was a major Canadian network though, and she hated us right out of the gate. She did not like us to the point, and I'm going to butcher this if Robbie's listening, where she came up to Robbie and on camera, and her first question was, "How does it feel knowing that all of Edmonton is laughing at you right now?"
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and it's like, what? But he had, if that's look, flat earthers develop a thick skin pretty quickly,
right,
so it's not the first time he's ever heard this. Although it was the first time he'd heard this on camera. Normally they're supposed to be fairly objective. She was not one of these people. So I'm doing my Q&A a little bit later that morning, and she comes in because I opened the conference, and she comes in and cuts in line, asks Patricia if she can cut in line, And Patricia being the gracious
She
host.
actually kind of didn't ask. She said, "I'm on a deadline. Can I cut in front of everybody?" In a
Oh
kind
my
of rough
gosh.
voice. And I just thought, and I asked the people that were in the line, because I was there kind of to greet them and help them get to the microphone and talk with Mark on stage. And everyone said, yeah, sure, yeah, sure. See, flat earthers were polite. The reporter, not so polite.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Patricia wasn't the person to just come back and say something like, "Well, you want a compound fracture?" I got 3 words for you, lady: blunt force trauma.
Next
But
time.
no, but she comes up to the line, and her question was it was baited. I'd already answered a bunch of questions already, and she said, "Hey, you've already dodged this question twice. And, I want you to give me a straight answer," which was, why aren't you guys, charging Antarctica? Why aren't you, heading to Antarctica?
You didn't dodge, quote,
I
dodge.
know.
So rude.
But I think she was baiting me, trying to get me to be like, what have I done? Trying to get me on defensive. But it's like, who cares? I wasn't gonna play that game. I just, okay, fine. Let's talk about Antarctica. And I go into the Antarctic Treaty. And because I didn't take the bait, she didn't use that segment. Her producer, he didn't go over it. But Robbie, at that point, once he saw that she was still causing trouble, he banned her for life from any conference at that point, and made it very public to where she mentioned it in her. He threw her out, and she mentioned it in her article and whatever. So that was the only trouble we had, I think, with the media. The rest of them were really, really nice, and I've got to give a shout out to, oh boy, am I going to screw up his name? Was it Mac? The guy from Canadian Vice.
Oh, I think it is Mac. Yeah, one of the writers.
I think it was Mac. He was so on top of having exclusively Canadian things, they also have the Canadian versions of the American things. Like I did an interview with Canadian Geographic, which is their equivalent of National Geographic. I had no idea that was a thing. And they also have Vice Media Canada. And so he was up there, and he really was interested in the whole thing. He was really clear right off the bat. He goes, "Look, I'd really like to hang out with you guys. If you're going to do anything after the conference, I'd like to, so if you guys are going to go out to a bar or restaurant, I'd like to hang out with you." And so he was our tag along for what was a group of 6 or 7 of us, I think.
Yeah.
We had two general members from Canada that were there. Matt, you, me, and Rick Hummer. Right. And then I think this Matt guy. Anyway, the point was he hung out with us. We went to a restaurant and went to an 8, and then we went to a bar, and we talked and talked and talked, and he asked so many great questions, and he hasn't put it out yet. So I'm very curious to see how the Vice Canada piece comes out. I think it's going to be great.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, those Vice guys, they seem.
Oh my gosh, it just came out. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just Googling.
Nice.
It's called Fear of a Flat Planet, Inside Canada's First Ever Flat Earth Conference, with a big picture of a globe Earth with a red X through it. Came out August 30th by Mac Lamoureux, Lamoreaux.
Oh, crap. You heard it here first.
Yeah. I'm going to look at it right now and see what it says.
All right. Anyway, go ahead and keep asking. Yeah, you're right. Go ahead and ask your other questions. I'll let Patricia skim through it.
Okay.
Excellent. Yeah. So, well, that's great. And who else? Because I know that you guys do a lot of interviews, anyways. But anybody else worthy of mention as far as doing documentaries or?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, and I'm just going off the cuff here. The Guardian out of the UK, who has run a number of flat Earth stories ever since they caught wind of it back in late 2015. They want to do a documentary as well. And so they are going to be coming out to the Denver conference, and they are going to. So we did like a preliminary interview, and they're going to be shooting out here, and doing that whole thing, which will be a lot of fun. Other than that, I mean, good Lord, so many. I don't know all the people. Just about any Canadian group that was up at the conference, any Canadian media I talked to, including a couple internationals, which I just don't know their names, unfortunately. But I did, I think, 6 or 7 while I was up there at that particular conference when I was just walking around the lobby. They're also not as direct. They didn't hunt me down as much as the American ones do. Americans are way more aggressive, whereas Canadians, they like hope that you would walk within visual range of them. It's like, hey, can we talk to you? We'd love to talk to you. It's like, okay. I think one of them pinned me down. I mean, I was not hard to find when I was at this particular conference. The seating, the layout was different. It was done kind of banquet style. Like if you were at a roast, where you have circular tables all over the place. So instead of rows and rows of chairs, and that format actually worked out pretty well because people could, set up shop. They could, bring, their coffee or their tea or whatever they were drinking, and they could kind of spread out. And plus it was kind of a little community building. So, but yeah, the media has been great. The only negative stuff we've run into recently, and I don't know if you've heard some of the stuff that's been going on, but YouTube has been and Google has been changing some stuff recently to kind of go along with the fake news stuff. Part of it is because they want to reduce, the stories about shootings and false flags and stuff like that. And Flat Earth can't get lumped up too much into it. But they did pull down the scoreboard from YouTube, which I still think it was directly related to the fact that Flat Earth was trending faster than the president of the United States, where I had made a show on it on TFR, where I literally, the episode, and you can look it up, it's not even that old. It's not even 2 months old, I don't think, called Flat Earth Passes the President of the United States. And we had beat him in the trends 20.9 to 20.8 million. And almost immediately afterwards, somebody messaged me and they said, you can't look up the numbers anymore. What are you talking about? They said, when you go into YouTube, and you've probably seen this then, where you type in anything, whatever it is, whatever topic, potato salad, George Clooney, whatever it is, you'll see search results equals a number. Right? It's in every browser that's ever been put out there. That it's Internet 101, right? Anything that you can ever search for, it always shows you your search results. And YouTube was no different. It was there since YouTube was founded. That was removed recently, and I mean gone. So where it's not like search results equals 0 or search results equals weird numbers or anything like that. The whole line where it was search results equals is gone, and it's not like they didn't do a major overhaul of the interface. No big change to the layout. Nothing like that. It was just, they just pulled it. We were beating them so bad, and we were mentioning it so many times that they decided to take their football and go home. And I feel bad for some of the people that rely on those search results. I'm hoping that one day they put them back. I just don't see it happening though. They didn't even make an announcement about it. I just thought it was really, really strange. So,
that is strange.
Yeah.
Well, I've just read the article, by the way. So
excellent. Please report.
It could have been a better article, I'll say. It's not bad. It says it's primarily a Christian movement and that nobody could convince the writer, Mac, that the earth is not a globe. He kind of thinks we're all kind of lovable losers. But that's par for the course with most of these mainstream articles. So
I like the first picture they used of the I'm stealing that one. The one of the final panel where you're in it. That's a good shot. The second shot, not so great from the other angle. I won't go into that too much. Of the one of the participants.
Yeah, well, I'm going to share it on my Facebook and Twitter, so anyone who follows me can take a look at it.
That's a big article.
Yeah, but if you don't know, to just look it up with just put in Vice Magazine Canada and it'll come up. But the title again, "Fear of a Flat Planet Inside Canada's First Ever Flat Earth Conference." It's okay. It's just okay. I'm always disappointed. I'm like, come on, couldn't you guys do better than that?
You know what?
What do you expect?
I'm still I haven't read it, but it's a big article. There's lots of pictures in it. The titles fairly generic, so I'm gonna and weird that we were talking about him and it comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Well,
yeah.
I've been checking like as much as possible all the time for these different articles to come out, and so
Excellent. Anything else pending?
You mean as far as
well,
articles go?
Yeah, articles.
Well, the
news
National
crews or
Geographic's
interviews?
probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
That's because that's going to be as big as the ABC News piece, which they re-released. It was interesting. ABC News and Vice, they did the same thing. They follow each other, where they want to make sure it was still as current as possible. So they made the old video private without tearing it down, and then they reposted it under I think a slightly different name, so it didn't look like it, because you're not supposed to post identical videos. But other than that, no, I'm not waiting for. I don't think I'm waiting for anything at the moment. I might be though. I can't remember, to be honest.
yeah, I'm always thinking,
So
well,
much
there's that
going on,
one.
right?
Well,
Yeah, there's way
and
too
things
much.
overlap too. Well, we're
Yeah.
actually waiting for Shane Dawson's brother to come up with whatever.
Oh yeah, that thing.
he's coming up with that he'll be putting on his YouTube channel. So
Right.
hopefully that'll be, fairly positive, because I'm not saying he says he's a flat earther, but he's pretty darn close, unlike this Vice writer, who wrote this article.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that might be cool when it comes to
The Shane, now hopefully my hope is that Jared, who's got his own channel, and of course that's where it's going to primarily go. I would hope that Shane would use some of the footage, even though he was not there, and just do his own narration and do kind of a part two, because heck, he did get 17 million hits off of the last one he did.
Right.
So why wouldn't he do this
Yeah,
one?
absolutely.
So
Yeah, you definitely think he would follow up, especially you said his brother, right?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
his brother, yeah, which is, and I know they use each other's stuff, and it's going. I'm excited about the piece because he got a lot of great stuff out of it. I don't know if he's going to use as much from the meetup with the individuals at the meetup, because he was hoping. It was really strange. You remember this comment, Patricia, where he wanted to get more out of them, but he felt like they were a little nervous because they didn't know him. They just knew he was media. So they didn't know, if they could trust him. And so the average person at the meetup wasn't, he thought they just weren't, they were holding back.
And you and I are like, media? Sure. You want to talk about flat Earth? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you want to talk about?
And maybe maybe we should be more, reticent to speak. But what? They're going to write an article anyway. They might as well get the truth, even if they kind of
Right.
spin it a
As
little.
much as you can.
Right.
Yeah, you never know. I mean, why hold back? And honestly, there's been so much street activism lately. It's really been trending. A lot of people have been doing the street activism stuff. It's become a kind of a new thing where people are trying to out activist themselves, in different parts of the country and the UK and wherever else they're doing it. Oh, sorry. There was one thing I got to mention about the conference, which you probably didn't know, Zen, which was that afterwards, and this was done by Robbie Davidson, we kind of had a little kind of a speaker's retreat after the fact, where we drove in cars from Edmonton out to Calgary, and we stayed in a Airbnb, a big house out there, 5 or 6 bedrooms in Calgary, and almost all of us went. I think the only person that didn't go, the 2 people that didn't go was Emmanuel and Jaron. Jaron had to go back, but the rest of us were out there. Bob and Cammie and their son, and Rob Skiba and me and Matt and Patricia and Robbie Davidson and Rick, and we had a whole bunch of fun. We went up to Banff, and took pictures and did some streaming from up there, and it was a beautiful place. The weather was hit and miss, but it was a lovely, just a really nice, relaxing way to. We didn't sleep as much as probably we should have. Well, I mean, you put that many flat earthers, in a room, and everybody wants to do something, and everybody's, we're getting fed by media constantly. Plus you had Rick Hummer that wanted to shoot footage for the Roll and Ready thing, as he didn't want to waste a single moment. If he had his way, I don't think we would have slept at all. But we were there for, what was that, 2 or 3 nights? 3 nights? Do you remember?
Yeah, 3 nights, I think. Yes,
I think it was 3.
we went grocery shopping together. It was just pretty crazy to be grocery shopping with fellow flat earthers. We all have our own carts and together, having breakfast together. It was like that old MTV, Real World, or
it was
right.
It was like real world flat Earth. That's really what it was. It really felt like that.
But we didn't film it, but we should have.
Well, the thing was, you did a secret show from there, and so the difference is that in the old Real World, you had camera guys running around you at all times, and in this case, we had the cameras. So it was real, and we weren't fighting like in those TV shows, and that's why we could never have a real reality show flat Earth thing, because most of us that would be together on purpose, like we were, aren't going to be arguing. So you're right. Patricia and I would joke off and on over the last few years about how so much production value was wasted, but whenever drama came up. But what was interesting and just go figure, was when the documentary came out, for example, all the flat earthers were really, really nice. And all the scientists, the people who were against us, were very cordial, very, very nice. And so it's like, well, okay, well, you have to have a villain, right? You have to have an antagonist in the story. So who did they make, but one of our own? And they chose Matt, Matt, not Matt Long, but Matt Boylan. And
right.
they made him the villain. And he
he made himself the villain.
He made himself the villain.
He recorded right off his channel with him screaming about you and about me, not because of anything we did to him. He was just screaming, and they filmed it and put it in the video. And only after they asked him if he would willingly participate in the video, and he gave a list of demands.
Right.
And those demands were a bit extreme. So the film crew, although we didn't know any of this until after it was made, put the list of demands in the movie.
Oh my Lord!
Wow.
We didn't even know. We didn't know we knew the bulk of the people that were going to be in the documentary, but there were 2 people that we absolutely didn't know until the last minute. One was Nathan Thompson, and the other one was Matt Boylan. In fact, I had to find out because I read a Canadian movie review, because there's some media that have watched this film. Canadian movie review, they mentioned Matt, and I call up Patricia and I go, is Matt in this?
And I'm like, I don't think so.
And it turns out he's not he didn't sign any release forms. Oh crap, we're on the break. Sorry.
Yeah. All right, we'll be right back for final segment. All right, welcome back everybody for final segment. It seems like we're in a time warp and things just goes by so quickly. But I had mentioned to Mark, it seems like Flat Earth is like this year's Bitcoin, and there's so much conversation and that it is being discussed everywhere, and we don't even know how much. But anything with regard to the media and people, different shows, and you mentioned Alan Alda, but anybody else of significance or any shows
unfortunately not that we can say. And a lot has happened since Raleigh. I mean, I can't believe that we still have a few months before the next conference, but everything that I have run into, all the people that I have run to so far, and they've all been unsolicited. I mean, like the Hollywood thing that the icon that Patricia and I and Rob Skiba got a chance to. It was again completely unsolicited. We don't know these people. They just contacted us, and they all say the same thing, whether it be Wall Street or the entertainment community or the sports community. It's traveling everywhere. Because let's face it, when it comes to just personal interaction with each other, once you get past the small talk, I'm not talking about your intellectual conversations. I'm talking about people on the street. Once you get past the weather, let's talk about the weather and sports and politicians and stuff like that. Once you get past that, the conversation usually boils down to somebody telling an interesting story. In fact, they'll even preface it with, "Oh yeah, I heard something interesting the other day." "Really, Fred? Tell me about this interesting thing." "I heard something too." And you'll exchange a few interesting things if you got something. And what everyone has told me is that Flat Earth is the most interesting story currently out there. Period. There's nothing more interesting than it, because it opens up your mind to a whole. Even if you come at it sideways, you got to remember the celebrities that we ran into. They were hearing it because somebody was coming down on it because they had a family member that was into it. So even if you're spreading the word by doing it in a negative way, it's still spreading the word. It's kind of like this weird virus that gets out there that spreads whether or not, just accidentally, kind of like spreading a cold. You don't even know. It's like, "Oh, you got this crappy cold. Why are you in this elevator with us?" And all of a sudden you infect everybody in the elevator. But yeah, it has been, just an amazing year so far. And we still have, I suppose we should eventually segue into the whole Denver thing, because you are going to be there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to finally meet everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you and I met down at the Atlanta thing.
Yeah, right. But with the rest of the community, yeah, most certainly.
And I still tell that story. Did you? I think I told you that when I was down there, when we went to the bar for lunch during one of the breaks, the bartender was into it. And she came up, and then the Homeland Security guy, when I was checking my bag leaving Atlanta, he was into it. And I've run into more and more. In fact, the little story I haven't told a lot of people was when I was flying out to the Canadian conference. And I was in an airport shuttle, and the woman next to me, who just felt chatty because she really didn't travel alone very often, and she asked what I did, and I said, I'm into Flat Earth, blah blah blah, and she says, "Tell me more," and I give her the whole nickel tour, and at the end she goes, "Hey, do you have a card that I could give my babysitter?" And I said, "Your babysitter? Why?" And she goes, "Oh, she told me about Flat Earth 4 months ago." I go,
younger
really?
person. There we go.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and it's like, well, one, that Flat Earth is harmless enough that even though her babysitter's into it, this is a person that's watching your child. It's not scary in any way to where it's like, yeah, you can't watch our kid anymore. It's nothing. It's nothing like that. It's true. I mean, Flat Earth, it's why we survived in social media for as long as we have, because it doesn't feel dangerous. It's really positive. I mean, there's Flat Earth music, and there's tons of Flat Earth art and Flat Earth memes. And we've had, I don't know, a couple hundred meetups now all over the country, all over the world. And there hasn't been a single incident. Nobody's even gotten in a fight at any of these things. I mean, you get little tempers here and there, but it never comes to blows, because it's about the idea. It's not about the person. I mean, yeah, you may not like Flat Earth, but you're not gonna knock somebody out because he's bringing it up to you. It's amazing. And so, yeah. I'm sorry. Let me rattle them off real quick, because I know you probably haven't done this yet. So there were 8 of us at the 8 speakers at the Canadian conference, and for the American conference, there are 14. Rob Skiba, Patricia Steere, Jaron, Bob, Iru Landucci, DITRH, D Marble, Robbie Davidson, Zen Garcia, of course, me, Matt Long, Dave Murphy, Karen B, and Emmanuel Lakanga.
Awesome.
So should be a lot of
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong there? No, it's going to be if and I've told Patricia this a few times, if Canada was any indication of how Denver is going to be, it is going to be amazing. Everybody brings something new and different. Such a wide variety to the table. We've got 2 different tracks of speakers. So if you really don't want the heavy Christian track, you can always go the secular track. You're not gonna get criticized either way. It's at a great location, centrally located this time, out in Denver. And really close to the airport. I mean, this time it really is close. I mean, I think it's barely 8 miles from the airport, and the road, it goes straight there. I think Rob Skiba is opening. He's going to be opening this conference. I'm opening the second day with my Q&A stuff, and everybody else is going to be bringing some great stuff. And a few of these guys I have not met yet. I have not met Dave Murphy in person, I don't think. And Karen, I don't really know her very well. So I don't even know why I even talked to her. But no, it's gonna be cool. I got a chance. The great thing is we've already met so many of these people that it feels like a well-oiled machine moving forward, and it's only going to get better from here. I'm just so excited about it. Everybody's getting really, really pumped.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Again, the whole snowball effect, and the most incredible thing about this particular topic and this particular issue is that the deception, the all-encompassing deception that this, the whole heliocentric Copernican Darwinian model, and when you wake up to that and then you come to terms and actually open yourself to this possibility and finally allowing for it to be your truth, embrace it, just the paradigm shift that you have to go through, and then the relevancy that it brings to your life as far as waking up. It's like totally waking up from the Matrix. We feel like Neo and all of that small crew of being disconnected from all of that and wanting to help others to make sense of world and really come out of all of those lies. I mean, it like when we all first woke up to 9/11, and that was a very scary thing, learning that government lies and that they sponsor terrorism and all of that. But it helps you to really learn, again, those kind of things, but not so much as far as the black ops and the whole terrorist side of things, just that NASA and government and the whole conspiracy of all these space agencies and different groups working together to perpetuate the lie. It's just so massive. It's really just mind-blowing. But
it is. But at the same time, it was one of those secrets that was never going to be able to be kept forever.
Right.
It was too big. It was something so big, and anyone that's listening to this for the first time, you got to understand that human beings had nothing to do with this. It was the only thing we did was try to keep the secret for longer than it probably should have been. I really, really believe that we were going to find this out eventually, and naturally, and that the powers that be, lucked out and they found it first. And when they did, it's like, you know what, let's hold on to this a bit longer until we can figure out what to do with it, like they would with a lot of secrets. And it was, and now, perfect timing. If you believe in the plan and you believe in synchronicity and everything for a reason, there's a reason why it's coming out now, and how everything seems to be going into place. And even the fact that science is not which is why part of my speech was calling out science, just putting them on notice, saying, look, you don't want to fight back, fine. Whatever's going to happen, this is all on you from this point forward. If you are not going to mount any sort of organized defense against us, we are just going to rack it up. We're gonna march across the field, regardless. Fine, you don't want to show up, you don't show up. And they're not. They're still not. That's the part that's killing me. We put challenges out there, and they're so afraid of risking their academic credentials. They spent so much time being indoctrinated.
Right.
They're willing to bury their head in the sand just so they don't risk losing that indoctrination.
Oh, they're so scared of that.
Yeah, they some of them, yes, will be dragged kicking and screaming. And I know I said this years ago, which was, anyone that has a master's degree or higher in a physical science is going to have such a hard time when this becomes inescapable for them, when it's being brought up to them all the time from people. Right. I mean, they're probably just going to crawl into a nice bottle of scotch, and or in Neil's case, probably a $300 bottle of wine. And Yeah. So it's amazing. I have to pinch myself some days, even now, and say, is this really actually happening? And it is.
Patricia?
I'm always wondering what's going to happen next. It's what I'm always thinking. When is the big thing going to happen? The big one.
Right,
When are
right.
we going to get that article or something happening with some famous person talking about flat Earth in a very intelligent way that wakes the masses up?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Or will something happen before that that would be involving the government or something else that takes our mind off, not our mind off it, but the larger group of people off looking into things like this because their personal safety is at risk or they're unable to feed their families, like an economic crash or some kind of war.
Right.
I don't really know what's going to happen, and it keeps me awake at night. Really, I mean, I'm very excited about where flat Earth is going, but then I sometimes feel like it's not going fast enough. Something needs to happen.
Right.
I mean, and I agree. I absolutely agree with you on that, Patricia. But at the same time, just about everything that's happened to us so far, we didn't see the subtle nuances of it. Where every time I think that's like, oh, is this as far as we go? And then all of a sudden some new wrinkle and something where all of a sudden you realize, holy smokes, it's everywhere. That's the part where and I really don't want to miss this point. I was going to save it to the end, but I might as well say it now, which is, and Rob Skeeper reminded me of this, and that is everybody that's listening to this broadcast now, you're walking by flat earthers every single day.
Right.
Absolutely guaranteed. There are millions and millions and millions of them, but you don't recognize them because we don't have, unless they're wearing something really overt like a t-shirt or a hat or carrying a flag. You don't know because they look like everybody. They are everybody. And to where the one of the reasons I should bring this up real fast is the reason why National Geographic came out and visited us was because they saw the article. It was done by a scientific research group out of the UK called u.gov. And they did a survey of about, 9,000, 10,000 Americans to where they were asking them what their opinion was on the shape of the Earth. And they were asking very specifically for, the flat Earth angle. And when they got to, and most of the numbers, they were going on like 3%, 4%, blah, blah, blah. And which was amazing on its own. Remember, every percentage point in the United States is 3.3 million people. That's a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And the same sort of thing in Russia. But then they got to the 18 to 24-year-olds, and it was over a third. That really surprised them to where a third of the 18 to 24-year-olds, it was way beyond the curve, the bell curve, did not believe in the globe in some capacity. And that, I mean, you ask any scientist that when you're that far in deviance in terms of numbers, you have to have an explanation, and they didn't have one, and they were scrambling to where there were some articles that were posted just a couple of weeks ago where they were saying, well, they did the research wrong. It's like, what are you talking about? It's your group. It's a professional scientific research group. These guys are like a trusted source. That's all they do is go out and do these census, collections. And that was, so yeah, there's tons and tons and tons and tons of flat earthers out there in every demographic you can think of. I don't care what color you are. I've said this yesterday with Patricia. But flat earth doesn't care about race or gender or religious preference. Flat earth welcomes all. Yes. And it covers everybody. The only thing bigger than flat earth is God. Mm-hmm. And it's directly related.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
What are you going to do there? I mean, there's no place that flat earth can't go. Flat earth is obviously in the halls of the highest tier of media, where the people that run social media. It's in the government. It's in places where, yes, they're watching us. Yes, they're listening to us, and they don't know. I don't know exactly why they're making some of the moves they are, other than, and I'll end on this because I know I ramble. Whereas they seem to be trying to control it the way you would control a forest fire, where you butt up against it in some places and other places you let it run. But the ultimate goal is to kind of shape the fire, hopefully, in the way you want. Because as you know, any little thing goes wrong with a forest fire and then crosses a road and you're screwed.
Yes.
But that's what they seem to be doing in some cases. Some places they're just not fighting us at all. And then other places in social media, they seem to be trying to curb our enthusiasm. Like there's a timing issue here. Like they're really concerned about exactly, they've got some sort of date in mind where their drop dead date. It's like, okay, we can only fight it for this point and no further. And they seem to be, trying to like putting the brakes as much as they can. It's fascinating to watch. And when Patricia doesn't sleep because she thinks of certain things, that's what I think about when I go to sleep. And that does not help me sleep much.
That's a really good metaphor for the movement, is that it is a wildfire, and they're trying to put in all these fire breaks and control it and keep it from going this way or that. And then God is just pushing it with the winds this way. And it's just, it's exploding and burning and crossing highways. And you can only slow it down so much, because you remember the media feeds on itself. Media feeds on other media. They're really cannibals in that aspect, to where, like this Vice article, great. I'm sure people know about Vice, and this Vice article will be, because it's different now. Now you don't even have to add. All you have to do is make one email. It's like, hey, can I use parts of this? And nobody says no, because they all want the exposure. All you have to do is make sure I get the tagline. And so this Vice article is going to be reproduced. So the question is, how much of it? Where will it be reproduced? Who will pick up on it? Will it be carry over into the Denver thing? I'm hoping for a lot of buzz before the Denver conference. Right.
That'd be really fun.
I think that's going to happen, because even that study, where it shows 1/3 of the kids, in the younger generation, that they already have doubts. That is most certainly influence from the YouTubes and the videos and all the work that you and Patricia and so many others are doing in putting out content and serious content. And I think that one of the things that we need to do as well is that, how Patricia was saying, looking for that really serious piece, that we need to start creating that. Even we have, Robbie and others that are just really so proficient at creating just incredible documentaries. And so that's coming too. There's going to be very creative people get involved, and that will make the movies, the documentaries, write the serious articles. And it's just, especially when they wake up to the deception, they're just going to want to help others to do the same. Patricia, I want to give you a chance to comment too, and then we'll go back to you more.
I hope that we get a documentary different than the one Behind the Curve, that is more, I'd like it to focus on the people, because that connects the viewer with another human being and makes us seem more relatable.
Yes.
But also on the science and, the curvature and the spiritual aspect on a much deeper level. I would hope that documentary happens soon. And maybe it's a documentary that could get into a film festival that the flat earthers have to make.
Sure. Right, exactly. Yes.
Just like you were saying, I don't know how we do that. I'm not a filmmaker, but there's got to be filmmakers. I mean, I know that Robbie does that sort of thing, but something that takes it off YouTube and gets it into a film festival, maybe even gets it on eventually Netflix, Right.
A big screen. Yeah. Could you imagine Scientism Exposed on Netflix or, something like that? Wow.
It should be.
Yeah, exactly. Like Loose Change Market.
Yeah. We could also use a cameo or two at the Denver thing. That's what I'd really love to see. I mean, it's perfect timing for it. We've already done it once. Denver's a great location. You can come in from anywhere. You kind of know what you're getting. There's not an air of mystery around it. It's like, oh yeah, Flat Earth Conference. It's a thing now. And that's usually what happens when a conference becomes established, is you all of a sudden start getting people as, higher profile guys like, oh yeah, come here, just checking it out. Who knows? if they know the routine, like, oh yeah, I'm not a flat earther, but I'm here to check it out.
Right.
One of those deals. I'd love to see some higher profile people show up.
It'd be
Yep,
like
they-
Dragon Con one day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dragon. Yeah,
Well, they just might be too afraid too by putting themselves out there. Even if
Right.
they're, quote, just checking it out, they might be labeled a flat earther, and then they would be afraid that their career could tank because not enough people are out on the dance floor yet.
Right, exactly.
And don't forget the first documentary is not even officially out yet. That's the, it's just now, getting into the film festivals. And I, as much as I'm probably more impatient than Patricia is, I so wanted to be picked up at Toronto and just run with it. But at the same time, everything for a reason. I believe in timing. So for whatever, there's something else that, it'll come out when it's ready, but I have no doubt it's going to eventually come out. Yes, the flat earthers will have a hard time with it because they want a complete blowout. But at the same time, I know because I was in the audience, with Patricia when we saw it, it really put a lot of alert in people's heads to where, again, those first 20 minutes, watching it with a full theater, first 20 minutes, you could hear people giggling, people, doing the whatever, stuff. And then by the 30-40 minute mark, they're like, wait, what's going on here? This is like a real thing. And I got to share this one story because I know we're going to come out of here pretty soon, real quick, which is even the editor, Patricia knows this story, the editor of this particular film, the documentary Behind the Curve, he screened it to one of his friends who was also an editor in the industry. And the end, he didn't tell his friend anything about it. He just let him watch it. At the end, his friend goes, wow. He goes, what sort of budget did you guys have to hire all those actors? He goes, where did you find all that, all these extras? And he goes, no, man, there were no actors in this film. This was all real. And it just blew him away. He's like, what do you mean? You mean this conference it wasn't a piece of docu-fiction, it was a real conference? He goes, yeah, man, I was there. He's like, oh man. So yeah, heavy. All right. Yep. Well, real quick, website, contact information, and then Patricia.
It's what's the name of my channel? Oh yeah, Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. I forgot for a second. Yes, and it's on YouTube, and I would hope that anybody interested would subscribe. I feature interviews with flat earthers of all sorts, and the video interviews date back to the rebirth of the modern day flat earth movement in 2015. So you can find out all about people that maybe you take for granted as being on YouTube now and learn their backstory, where they came from and how they got into it. And once again, you can also find Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes as a community page on YouTube. Excuse me, Facebook.
Mark.
Cool. Flat Earth Clues, just Google it or put it in YouTube, Flat Earth Clues, or you can email me directly. I'm just going to give you my email address, which is M as in Mark, SARGENT 23 at Comcast.net. Or you know what? Here's my phone number, 303-494-6631. Same phone number I've used. Just call it.
Hey, from the whole community and myself, we want to thank both of you for all that you do. You guys are on the front lines and really waging battle, and I think winning the war, and more people are awakening to this daily, and both of you are part responsible for that huge awakening. So cheers and kudos to both of you.
Thanks for having us. That was wonderful.
My pleasure. And we'll pick it up again. We'll do a follow-up again. Robbie will be joining us in a couple weeks, everyone. God bless all. Good night.
Bye. Tricia, you still there?
Yes.
I'll buzz you.
Okay. Bye, Zen.